Hey guys, it's Visto. We are starting a new unit today, which is awesome. I'm super excited about it because we're going to actually do some stuff with graphs and solve some equations in some ways that maybe we didn't realize we could. So we're talking about what's called the fundamental theorem of algebra, right? And fundamental meaning most basic. So like if you think about, or sometimes I think about basketball, and the fundamentals are dribbling, passing, shooting, right? Those are the basics. And if I think about soccer, right, I think about one-touch passing or like how to dribble the ball with it at your feet. Like what are just the basics, the things you have to learn? So this is the most basic idea of algebra. And that's what we're talking about in this particular unit, is this fundamental theorem. The nice thing for us is as we're talking about this, we're going to be super focused on graphs. That's going to be our point of emphasis. So as we get into our note packet here, you already know that I want you to write your name on it somewhere. So I'm going to put mine right up in the top corner. Put a smiley face because I'm excited about this chapter. Please, right now, get your name on your paper or on your packet, right? And then if you need to, turn and make sure the person next to you has their name on theirs because we're all in this together and we want to make sure we're all getting stuff done together. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to slide. You're just turning pages. Our focus today is going to be on page 3, understanding graphs. So we're doing that here today. And again, I told you that our main point of emphasis in this particular unit was going to be graphs. Right, so if you're looking at this, and maybe I shouldn't highlight right there, but maybe what I should highlight is we're looking at graphs. Whoops, that's not highlighted. We're looking at graphs today. We're looking at graphs in the next section. We're wrapping up with graphs, and then the other two I just didn't use the title. So we're going to be doing a lot with graphs and a lot with Desmos. But for our notes today, we are in chapter 3. Nope, not chapter 3. Page 3. So on page 3, what I want you to do is I want you to get here. You'll know you're in the right spot because it'll say page 3 in the bottom right corner, right? Fire up. You guys are shocked that it's actually there. And you'll know you're in the right spot because there's this giant graph here. And we've got our topic, we've got our essential question. So our topic is roots from graphs. Right? And our essential question is, how will we know if we have all roots? Right? And today we might not know. And that's what's super cool. It's okay that we might not know. Because I haven't told you all the things yet, right? I'll tell you more things when we get further in this chapter. But for today, we're just thinking about like, hey, what are some of them? And are they all of them? How will we know? And so here we go. We're going to find real roots by graphing. And if we want to clarify that a little bit, we find them all by using Desmos. So that means something you should probably do is open up Desmos and get to a graphing calculator page, right? Because we're going to actually use this a little bit today. We're going to actually type some stuff into Desmos. But in the meantime, in our notes. So keys to reading these graphs. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to draw 1, 2, 3 blank graphs. And then I want you to stop. We will add to those tomorrow. We're going to dig into that deeper tomorrow. But for today, we're just going to sketch them. So just get them sketched. We'll leave them blank for tomorrow. Because what we're going to do is we're actually going to come down here to this new graph. So get your three blank graphs sketched. And we're going to come down to this new graph. Before we get all the way down there, I'm going to write myself a note, and you are too. Remember, roots are on the x-axis. So before we get too carried away, we want to make sure we clarify that. If you have a highlighter, you might want to bust it out, because let's talk about this graph. So before we dive in, let's highlight the x-axis. There's our x-axis. That's going to be important to us because that's where we're going to get our answers. Okay? So as we read this, one of our answers, the roots, one of them is at -2. Right? That's this spot right here. Because there's a spot right there on the x-axis. One of them is at -1. And one of them is at +1. Now, as you're looking at those, what I want you to be aware of, or whatever, is I've left some space after each of those numbers. So I didn't write them all in a row. I left some space because there's more we're going to say. We're going to say more about -2. We're going to say more about -1. And we're going to say more about +1, but not today. So just hold tight. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. But in the meantime, here's our roots. -2, -1, +1. Okay? Now, here's how this looks. Here's how this works. So if we're given the graph, we're just going to find the x-axis and then go. We're just going to look at it, find the x-axis. We're like, hey, here's where our answers are. Type. Make a list maybe with commas in Moodle. Not in Moodle, in Delta Math. But if we aren't given a list, here's what we're going to do instead. Hi, Ginny. Okay, here's what we're going to do. So if I'm doing number 1, let me zoom here. Here's my number 1. Give it one more good zoom. 2 more good zooms. There we go. So here's number 1. And then I'm going to come into here. And if you are not super confident with your typing abilities, you are probably going to want that keyboard up on the bottom. So number 1 says x to the 4th plus 2x to the 3rd minus 4x to the 2nd minus 8x. Okay? If your graph does not look like mine, right? Mine looks like this. It goes way down here, something like that. If yours does not look like what you're seeing on my screen, I really want you to, and we can pause the video and double check. I want you to check that yours looks like mine, that the person next to you looks like mine. We all have the same graph because of what we're going to do to get our answers, right? Because of what comes next. So looking at this graph, it's a nice graph, right? And I'm going to go, there's an answer here. It's at -2. Oh, there's an answer here. It's at 0. Oh, there's an answer here. It's at +2. Okay, so I just said -2, 0, and +2. Okay? -2, 0, +2. Those are all great answers. I love them all. What I want some of you to be careful of is you're going to want to look at this point until I say, no, don't do it. And you're going to want to look at this point. And I say, no, don't do it. Because if you remember correctly, we only care about, this will allow me to zoom in a little bit more. We only care about the x-axis. So I only care about these points that live right on the x-axis. Anything above there or below there, I'm going to ignore. Okay? So in my notes, whoops, I accidentally just drew a dot. Let's get rid of that cute little dot. My notes, I'm going to write that down as my solutions, right? Those are my roots. Those are the 3 places where we cross the x-axis. They're the 3 solutions to this particular equation, right? And we did this with quadratics, but this is just kind of it in a bigger, more in-depth setting. So here we go. One of them was at -2. -2. One of them is at 0, and one of them is at +2. And remember, please just write them like that. So that way we can talk a little bit more about a couple details or a couple wrinkles when we chat tomorrow. Just fixing my tube because I didn't like how it looked. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. This is what I think. I think you guys should pause, and I think you should try number 2 on your own. But I also know that I've been talking for a long time, so if you want to just hear me talk about it, I'm back in my Desmos. Here I am. 2x to the third plus 5x to the second minus 3x. Nice graph, right? I can zoom in. Some of us might be tempted to be like, oh, Visto. Oh, hang on. Cancel. Click the wrong thing. Oh, Visto, check this out. There's a point here and a point here. And we're like, wow, let's go. Fire up, right? Make sure you zoom out. Right? How do we make sure we have all of them? We're going to make sure we zoom out. Now, if I keep zooming, nothing cool happens after that. But I want to make sure I hit 1 to get all 3 of those points. -3. Oh my gosh, I keep bumping that spot. -3. -3. There we go. 0. And 0.5. If you get something like 0.33, just know that you might need to change it to a fraction. So we can totally say 1/2, right? Because we know that. So that's your task. That's what you're working on. You're going to be solving things. You're going to be remembering that roots are on the x-axis because I told you to write it down. You're going to not lose your packet because your name's on it. You're going to turn it into the bin. And you are going to have 3 blanks so that we can talk about them tomorrow. You got this. I can't wait to have more conversations with you about graphs here soon.